let's get to the show. It's all fun and games until we get to the show. I'm bringing up now Whitney Tilson. He's a Democrat. Everyone knows I'm a Republican, so you must know how much I like this guy. Bring him in my house, full of law enforcement and federal government types. But anyway, he's a good guy. I listened to him. I met him. He was supposed to speak at our next salon, and I think he's still going to honor that commitment, so you'll get to see him for the whole night. So don't forget to sign up for that one. But he's going to give you about 10 minutes of his time, and he's probably got to pump to another meeting. He's got things going all over the city, but you really need to hear what Whitney has to say. Whitney?
Should I come stand on stage?
You can't you want.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time. I'll try and be brief. So I'm Whitney Tilson. I'm running for mayor of New York as of about a month ago. I entered the race as a first-time political candidate, which normally is a liability, but in this environment, I think is an asset. So let me answer the first question. You all are probably asking that I ask myself sometimes every night, like, why are you doing this, Whitney? And the answer is I love this city. I think it's the greatest city in the world. It's why my wife and I, who met in graduate school in Boston, moved back here to live in New York. Why we raised our 3 daughters here who were born in the 1990s. And why when they went off to college, they have all come back here and have started their careers, and under great pressure from me, hopefully will be building their families here as well. So the problem is that we're now becoming increasingly unusual. Families are fleeing this city in large numbers. The statistics when I looked into running for mayor floored me. Just in the last 4 years, New York City has lost 707,000 residents, 8% of our population. These are working class New Yorkers by and large. A handful of billionaires going to Florida is killing our tax base, but the largest number of people leaving, working class people. The number one, they're leaving because number one, they can't afford their rent. Number 2, their neighborhood isn't safe. And number 3, when they have kids, they're not satisfied with schools where half the kids are reading at grade level. So this is not just happening, though, in the last 4 years. And by the way, you might think, every city's lost a bunch of population because of the pandemic. We've lost 8% of our population. That is the highest percentage loss of population of any city in the country, of the largest city except for one. One other city has lost 10% of their population. Anyone want to guess what it is? San Francisco. We are second worst only to San Francisco in population loss in the last 4 years. But this has actually been going on for 50 years. Since 1970, New York State has lost 13 House seats. The state that most New Yorkers flee to when they leave New York is, guess what? Florida. Guess how many House seats Florida has gained since 1970? 13 House seats. So do you think it's just the sunshine? No, it's because we, and I'm a Democrat, we have just not been managing our state and our city very well for a long period of time. Why is this? Well, sort of one party, it happens in red states too. When you have one party rule with no opposition, good ideas in your party tend to get taken to extremes over time that turn into very bad ideas. While what we have today, I think, is while Mayor Adams and all of the other career politicians, and every single other candidate in the race is a career politician, I'm the only exception, while they have been pandering to special interest groups, I've built half a dozen small businesses in this city over the last 30 years. I have fought for a good education for every student in New York. I'm one of the founders of Teach for America, for example. It was my first job out of college right here in New York City 35 years ago. Was employee number 2 at Teach for America. I guess the summary is, and happy to take questions, is I am the only person with 1 day of business experience in this race. I am the only non-career politician. I don't owe anything to anybody. Not if I get elected. I will not owe anything to anybody. I am a Democrat running basically against the machine of my own party that I think is failing all of us. So I will be able to serve and put the best interests of all New Yorkers first. I will make one final comment because I've had the pleasure of meeting many members of law enforcement in this room, so I want to speak specifically to that. I am a very much a law and order, pro-police Democrat, which sounds like, literally I was on Fox and Friends a couple weeks ago, and they're like, Whitney, you sound like a Republican. And I was like, well, that's just evidence of how far left my party has gone. I'm sort of running, people ask me to summarize, I'm running against the defund the police people in my own party, because I think that's crazy. I have an interesting background. For those of you in law enforcement, may be skeptical to know that I spent almost 10 years co-chairing Central Synagogue's Criminal Justice Reform Initiative. And we fought for things like raise the age, bail reform, discovery reform, close Rikers, a sanctuary city, et cetera. So you guys are probably right now saying, oh my God, Whitney, you were part of the coalition that screwed everything up and created the revolving door for criminals, et cetera. But here's the thing. I felt like in each of those pieces of legislation, there were necessary tweaks to move the pendulum from here to here. And then what happened in a one-party state is sometimes in the middle of the night in Albany, when it came time for legislation to pass, the pendulum went to here, and it's made it all a lot more dangerous. So let me just give you one quick example that I normally don't go into this kind of depth, but given law enforcement in this room, you guys will appreciate this. Bail reform. Going back to 1971, believe it or not, this state, in a burst of insanity, passed a law making us the only state in the country to this day that does not allow judges to consider a defendant's dangerousness when making a pretrial detention decision. Now, you might think to yourself, well, what else is there to consider? Whether you let a guy out, whether he's going to go, literally, like, let's imagine someone has beaten his girlfriend or wife and threatened to kill her. You don't want to let that guy back out, right? A judge by law in New York State to this day is not allowed to consider that factor. The only factor by law they're allowed to consider is whether the guy's going to jump bail, or in this case, flee the country and not come back to court. That's obviously insane. But we had a workaround. We had a bail system where if a judge thought, wink, wink, nod, nod, the judge thought that the defendant was dangerous, he would just set bail high enough that the defendant would be held, and therefore our safety would be protected, right? But however, that's a crude and unfair system. For example, a wealthy drug lord could buy his way out of Rikers even though he's super dangerous, and a non-dangerous but poor person is stuck in Rikers, right? That endangers public safety, it's unfair, et cetera. So the coalition that I was part of fought to get rid of bail, but I always said, and by the way, Governor Cuomo at the time said, you can't get rid of bail unless we fix the old law. You got to give judges the ability to consider dangerousness. So what actually happened? You know how this story ends, of course. They passed the law in the middle of the night, stripped dangerousness, didn't give judges dangerousness, didn't put that back in, but took bail away. And Governor Cuomo, despite saying he wouldn't sign it, did sign it. The year it went into effect, January 1st of 2000, that year the murder rate in New York City went up 47%. 100,000 people statewide who would have been incarcerated were released. Now, most of them didn't commit crimes, but you don't think there's some correlation between 100,000 people being let loose and a 47% spike in our murder rate, which has still not come down. We're still 30% above the murder rate where we were just 5 years ago. Violent felonies today are at a 25-year high, up 43% since 2000. Felony robberies are up 29% in the last 5 years. So, again, on the Democratic side, I hear such nonsense. Just this morning, I was in a room full of 200 CEOs. Mayor Adams came as the guest. And a block away is where the CEO was shot dead, the United Health CEO. And it was a room full of CEOs. So they, of course, were talking about this. And Mayor Adams came in, he said the right things, our hearts go out to the family, et cetera, and this was a terrible thing. But then he said, this is really an outlier. In fact, quote, New York City is the safest large city in America. And I almost jumped to my feet and said, no, it's not. I've got the data. It's not. And now keep in mind, Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia have doubled the violent crime rate of New York. We are not in a death spiral. We are the wealthiest city in the country by far. 5% of U.S. GDP is in this city. Okay, we have interest, and we're super rich, and we tax super high. So here's an interesting little factoid. I'm learning all these great facts running for mayor. We are if we were a state, we would be the 13th largest state by population. Our budget would make us the 4th largest state. That's how big, $112 billion budget. Now raise your hand if you think that budget is being spent well and the government is delivering really high quality services to you and all New Yorkers commensurate with that level of spending. Okay, I've been asking this question all over New York. Not one person has said, yeah, I'm happy. So my summary argument why I think I'm going to win. I'll tell you the reason that I might lose, which is the Democratic Party primary, the party bosses have rigged the system to make it impossible, almost impossible for an outsider like me, because they schedule it in an off year, 2025. They schedule the primary on the worst day of the year, the middle of the summer, June 24th is coming up. And independents can't vote. You got to be a registered Democrat. So guess what the percentage turnout among registered Democrats in New York was 4 years ago? 24%. So they design it such that the party bosses and special interest groups can effectively elect their own mayor, who is then supposed to negotiate with them. Imagine what that negotiation looks like, right? And you wonder why things are screwed up and we pay too much and get too little, right? So that's why I'm going to lose. The reason I'm going to win is because if you've looked around this city, you've looked around this country, you've looked around this world, voters are pissed. They know that the system is screwed up, that they're paying way too much and getting way too little. And and so they're voting for change candidates. Whoever's going to change the system and come in and be honest and not be bribed by $10,000 airline tickets and don't sexually assault women. Like, the bar is so low, folks. All right? But most importantly, they want someone who's just going to come in and be smart and hire smart people and just do what's best for New Yorkers and not be owned by the special interests all feeding at the trough of your tax dollars. By far, I am the only change candidate in the race. So there you have it. I don't know which is going to weigh out, the rigged system that guarantees me to lose, or the fact I'm the only change candidate that guarantees me to win. So I'm hoping with all of your help that the answer will be the latter. I ask you to go to whitneyformayor.com. And here's the last thing is because I'm a politician, I have to ask, but there's an amazing, I'm going to offer you an 800% return on your capital. I'm assuming most people in this room are New York City residents. There is a city matching system that every single candidate has applied for. There are no self-funders in this race. There is no Mike Bloomberg dropping $73 million. All of us are on the same playing field. But to encourage us to raise money locally and to help people who can't self-fund. The city has set up, I think, is a good government program. Any candidate who applies for government funding can only spend $7.9 million in the primary. But then, if you agree to that cap, and we all have, any money we raise from New York City residents, from $10 up to $250, is instantly matched 8-to-1 by the city. So any of you give me $10, I get $90. You give me $100, I get $900. You give me the max of $250, my campaign gets $2,250. So I'm in the investment world. I have never seen an instant 800% return on capital. So that's, even if it's $10, the number of voters, number of people who donate is actually almost as important as the amount. So go to whitneyformayor.com, click the donate button, and just give me $10 if you can't afford to give me anything more. I'd love 100. I'd really love 250. The max for my billionaire hedge fund friends, give me 2,100. That's the legal limit from anyone in the country. But I'm not twisting your arm for that. Give me somewhere between 100 and 250 bucks, and I will be grateful, and I will win, and I will fix this city for you. So thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Whitney. Now, if you didn't get enough of that, and I tell you, you're going to want more, next month, January 22nd, if you're lucky enough, because I'm going to have to cut this list. There's a lot of undesirables here, as they used to say, prior to the election. Anyway, thanks for coming. The 22nd, you know how to give them a little bit of money. It makes a good difference.
WhitneyForMayor.com. Any donation of $10 or more, it will help. Thank you.
And he's doing webcasts. He's doing media runs. It's a non-stop battle. I got to tell you, thank you so much for doing it. Okay?
All right, take care.